Intellectual integrity is, or must be, the cornerstone of higher education. Without it, universities and colleges open themselves up to public repudiation. And because the integrity must emanate from the office of president, the decision by the trustees of Youngstown State University to hire Republican Congressman Bill Johnson for the top job becomes even more controversial. Johnson, who has represented the Mahoning Valley in Congress since 2011, is an unabashed supporter of former President Donald Trump and his big lie that his 2020 re-election bid was stolen from him. In parroting Trump's claim, Johnson is either intellectually dishonest or intellectually shallow. Either trait should be of great concern to the YSU community and the Mahoning and Shenango Valley communities at large as they contemplate the implications of Johnson's presidency. He is expected to take over the $410,000 a year position in March. It would not be an exaggeration to say that Johnson's selection, he has a tissue-thin resume in higher education, has ignited a firestorm throughout the region, the state, and even the nation. I'm Bertram de Souza, veteran Mahoning Valley journalist who wrote extensively about YSU and about Congressman Johnson during my 40 years with the now-closed Youngstown Vindicator. I retired as the editorial page editor and Sunday columnist. Today's Scribbler video podcast is a continuation of the one I posted on YouTube and Facebook the day YSU's trustees hired as president the Republican political hardliner. This podcast is in two segments. The first features a favorite son of the Mahoning Valley, Ed O'Neill, popular award-winning television star of the hit sitcoms Married with Children and Modern Family, and big-screen Hollywood actor. The second segment features Dr. Cryshanna A. Jackson Leftwich, professor of politics and international relations and spokeswoman for the faculty union. First of all, thank you, Ed, for joining me today to discuss what I know is an issue very close to your heart, namely the future of Youngstown State University. To begin, I'd like to express my appreciation for your call on Thanksgiving Day. It made me realize just how angry you are as a donor of YSU about the hiring of Congressman Bill Johnson. Ed, you've supported the university for many, many years, both financially and as an ambassador. Indeed, you have an honorary doctorate degree from YSU. So let's start by have you give us your no-holds-barred opinion of what has occurred with the hiring of Johnson.
Well, you know, Bertram, first of all, I have not been a big money donor.
Okay.
And there's sort of a reason for that is a little more complex. But I've done a lot of things for the university. I've given my time. I've traveled to the university for fundraisers. I've done all that sort of stuff that you do when you lend your name to projects and so forth. The donor thing, there are many people that have given much more money than I have. I think I've given a little bit here and there, but nothing like they would have liked me to do and asked me to do over the years. And, sponsor a theater in my name, which I wasn't interested in that sort of thing. And, but at any rate, this goes back to, I had trouble with the university when I transferred from Ohio University to play football down there. I started having trouble with Dyke Beatty, who was the head coach.
Right.
And I'm not going to get into that story. It's not, it's not worth it. We don't have the time. It doesn't matter. But that began my thinking where, I talk to boosters and say, why is he still the coach? He's an old guy. He's outdated. Nothing personal. He doesn't know how to coach anymore. But we're playing for him, and the players are suffering. There was never any action taken whatsoever. It was all, he's only got a couple more years to go. He's a legend, Well, okay, that was the beginning of it. And then, of course, when I was told that Jim Tressel, who I met early on, they had me in for a fundraiser. And I had lunch with him and Mel Masur, who I think was the
Joe.
And they had told me, we sat down and they gave me a kind of a rundown of what the evening was going to be like. And that went pretty good. I noticed Jim was a very kind of buttoned down guy.
Mm-hmm.
I knew he was a wonderful coach. He was doing a great job at Youngstown State. And then I thought he was wonderful at Ohio State. And in fact, I sang his praises. I would say, if you want to beat Jim Tressel, you better be beating him badly near the end of the game, or he's going to beat you. And that's a great quality for a football coach. Then, of course, when he got in that trouble, which he, admitted to in many ways, and he was fired, I was told that he was going to be the next president of the university. And I thought, how could that be? He doesn't have any experience in education. He's a football coach.
Right.
I thought it was ridiculous. Now, as it turned out, he raised a lot of money for the university, and I guess that I'm not around for all that, so I don't really know what he did in addition to raise a lot of money. He may have done a lot. I don't know. But there were questions even then about what was going on there. Why a football coach? So this has been a kind of a running theme for me at Youngstown State, just kind of wondering why this and why that. And then to cut to the chase, when this was announced that they hired this guy from Marietta or wherever I think that's where he lives.
Yeah.
The area at all. I think born in North Carolina, a lifetime military guy.
Right.
Air Force guy, reserve, I think. I just thought, why this guy? And then when I found out he was an election denier.
You're right.
And that he was for everything that Trump was for, that I'm opposed to. And I mean, even the idea that against transgenders and gays. And I said, how in the name of God could anybody in their right mind, look, I'm not saying, I don't know the man, but if I was on that board and they brought up this guy's name and told me what his record was, it would have ended right there. Nobody in their right mind would have taken it any further. I would have said, what are you talking about? This is a guy who's actually denigrated higher education.
Exactly.
So, I mean, this is like your worst nightmare for a president of the university. And for the board members to tell us this, they turned over every rock. They interviewed thousands of people, or hundreds anyway, I don't want to exaggerate that, but that they went out of their way and they interviewed this man, and they interviewed countless others who they don't mention who they are. And we're convinced that we have the right man for the job. And you want to say the next question is, why? What makes him the right man for the job? Because he told you he's the right man for the job? That's it. I mean, that's what, when you get him in a room and you talk to him, are your politics going to come into play? No. Oh, well, then fine. Isn't that what they did?
Exactly.
That's what they did. And I keep thinking, if it sounds crazy and untrue, it's because it is. There must be something else going on that we don't yet know about. Why they picked this guy. It's not because they think he's a good guy, or that he can raise a lot of money, or that he is a fan of education. We know he's not. So why? And I'm saying, well, gee, could it be political?
Mm-hmm.
What else could it be? I used to say, well, I just started saying this. I used to think that the Mafia and organized crime was finished in Youngstown, but I see now that it's not. It's just a different crew in operation, telling us one thing, doing another. So, in a nutshell, Bertrand, I don't buy any of it. I think that there's a lot of people doing things for other people that we don't know about, and that is not in the best interest of the community, of the students, of the faculty, only in the best interest of the political ideology of the few people that are pulling the strings in this situation. And believe me, they are there. I'm not sure who they are. I have my guesses, but that's what I think is happening.
So you're not buying this, his contention, both when he was introduced as the new president and then in subsequent interviews, that he will leave his politics at the doorstep.
Well, do you know why I'm not buying it, Bertram?
Why?
Because I'm not an artichoke.
Okay.
If I were an inanimate object, maybe I could buy it. But I have a brain.
Yeah.
So, you know, don't tell me that the earth is flat. I'm going to tell you no. That's it. If you believe this guy, I got a bridge I could sell you in Brooklyn.
So let's get back to, first of all, Tressel. A lot of your friends, a lot of the people that you know in this region supported him.
Yes.
In fact, they wrote a letter to the trustees on Tressel's behalf, urging that he be made president and talking about all his, great qualities and all of that. I was one who strongly objected to that, because my contention was that if you're going to be a serious four-year institution of higher learning, you need an academic to be president. You need somebody with a PhD, or you need somebody with some kind, with an appropriate terminal degree, because that's what this is about. It's about education. It's not about fundraising. It's not about But a lot of your friends supported Jim Tressel, and he became president.
That's right.
Now, these same friends of yours who supported Jim Tressel.
For 1 second.
Yeah.
I know who you're talking about.
Yep.
Guys that I grew up with, guys that I've loved all my life.
Yep.
And still love many. Friends are friends.
Yes.
I disagreed with them. And I tell you why I disagreed with them. Because I played for coaches. I knew coaches. And I know that they can only coach football. I don't have a lot of faith, and I don't have a lot of respect for football coaches. And that's probably why I was in that minority about Jim. Mm-hmm. And I don't know Jim. I didn't know Jim then, so it was not personal. Coaches. Football coaches are not my favorite people. I played football since I was 5 years old.
Right.
I played for junior high. I played for high. I played at Ohio U. I played at Youngstown State. I had a shot with the Steelers. I've been around lots of football coaches. They're pretty much of a mold. And they're not the kind of guys that I would, they have a narrow view of things. For the most part. You don't want to lump everybody in the same bag, but so I wasn't that enthusiastic about saying, well, this guy does this very well, one of the best in the country, but this is a different job entirely. Mm-hmm. Not qualified. I mean, I wouldn't say I was qualified. I know as much about higher education as the janitor at the YMCA. I wouldn't vote for me. I can be personable. I can tell a joke. I could probably raise money being personable. But that's not running a university.
So when
that's not representing all the students in all the various places they find themselves in: engineering, architecture, medicine, law, English, all that stuff. You have to know things. You have to be able to deal with teachers of every department. What do you say? Good morning. See you later.
Right.
Going to come to the game tonight? Got a good team.
But you know, the chairman of the board of trustees, I think, I might be wrong, but I think he played for Trestle when he was
He
at
did. I
YSU.
played for Trestle.
Yeah.
Look,
He said,
I don't know.
yeah,
I don't know him,
so
but I
he
know
said
he
that,
got on the board.
yeah, he said
I know
that,
he played for Jim, and I know he went to Wharton. Isn't that
right.
Trump's school? So I wonder who sponsored him to go to Wharton. Think about it. I like to make connections.
Right, you do.
Okay.
But he said that when they were considering Johnson and his lack of
Yeah.
higher education academic credentials,
Well, his lack of love for it
right, that's a good point. His lack of love for it.
disparages it.
Right.
When did he change his mind?
He said the
And he was
chairman
told he was
said,
going to get 450 grand?
yeah, the chairman said that they looked at Jim Tressel's record
Yeah.
and how well he did as raising money, and they said,
Yeah.
well, if Tressel could do it, so could Johnson.
Yeah, but aren't there professional fundraisers that the university could
Yes.
apply this to, that job to?
Yes. Yes.
You know, and sometimes raising money is not the most important thing. Money is good, a wonderful thing, we need it. But there's a lot of people that contributed money to the university that weren't the president of the university, that didn't, run the university. That takes, I'm certain it takes a certain, skill.
So when some of these major donors have contacted you,
Yeah.
have texted you and called you and, sort of bemoaning what is occurring, what are you telling them? What's your response to them?
Well, I mean, it's early on. I say, look, I know they're not happy when you pull financial money out of the university, out of your donors.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a good thing. That doesn't reflect well on their decision.
Right.
I think that's called pressure. The more pressure, if you're in a fight, the more pressure you put on your opponent, the better it's going for you, the less good it's going for them. I think it's complicated. I would say fire the whole board, but I think it's difficult to do that in a public institution because I think it's political, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, doesn't it?
The governor makes the appointments. The governor appoints, right?
Well, I think that, what's his name? Peterson was put in by Kasich, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it was Kasich. So when you go to the political in Columbus, it's not encouraging.
No.
In today's,
Right.
the way it is today. So, but I think then the only thing that would have an effect, hopefully, we don't know for sure, it would depend on what they're actually after. Would be the money. I know that people don't like that.
Right.
Because otherwise, if it's something else and they could get financed somewhere else, and then they could get their what they really want going, then that's a problem.
So you've acknowledged that you've been a long-time supporter of YSU, not one of the major donors, but you have given
Right.
money over the years. But indeed, you lend your name and your influence and your
Yeah.
reputation and all of those things to sort of sell YSU around the country. Given what?
Yeah, let me be clear.
Okay.
I have nothing against a political party that I'm not a member of. I never had any problem with conservatives my whole life.
Right.
I've had many friends of mine that are conservative, even now. But there's a little bit of a different thing today, something that's going on today in the radical fringe that's alarming. We all know that.
Right.
And so I think we have to protect the country. We have to protect the Constitution. We have to protect the rule of law. And if we don't do that, we're headed in a bad way. We're headed for a bad way. So that's all part of, my fear that there are other plans that we don't know about here. For instance, there are things taught at university that some people don't like.
Right.
They would like to change that.
Right.
They'd like to pull out some programs and put in others. And some of those things are not really academic. They're more or less ideological, political. We don't need that in our university.
As you know, I've been around 40 years covering the area politically and also writing about YSU. I'm not naive enough to think that no president who has served at YSU had political leanings.
Of course not.
Okay, all of them did. But I think the difference here is, I'm sure nobody could tell, if you ask somebody on the street, what does David Sweet, what does he believe in politically? Nobody would be able to say that and would tell you that, even Tressel for that matter. But with Johnson, his overt support of Donald Trump and Trumpism and Trump's philosophy, I think that for the trustees not to consider that he is a political lightning rod, even if he says he's not going to be one.
Well, that's what I mean. I mean, the very mention of his name in the meeting, the first time, if you were on that board, you would say, no, come on, don't be ridiculous. Don't be ridiculous. That's not going to fly. We can't do that. It's too controversial. But it didn't bother them, it seems like, at all, which is an arrogant posture. And that's why I'm thinking they've got to have somebody in power that gives them that confidence, that hubris, that arrogance to do what they did. They have to have confidence that they can get away with it and not be fired and laughed at and laughed out of town.
And to that point, if you notice, there is no apology from the members of the Board of Trustees at all. No mea culpas, no saying, oh, perhaps we should have done things differently.
No.
And there certainly isn't any apology from Johnson himself as to the fact that, all of a sudden
that's called arrogance.
Yes.
And I heard Peterson say, "Trust us."
Yep. Trust
us. Well, we've heard that before, haven't we? Trust us. Trust you? I don't even know you. With this, no. I'd rather not.
Where do you go from here? What is?
Well, I talked to Lawrence O'Donnell. He's kind of a friend of mine.
Yeah.
I met Lawrence for a few years over at MSNBC, and I sent him the articles, to give him a heads up.
Right.
And he said, "Well, I'm writing the show now." This was a couple nights ago. I don't have time to talk to you, but I'll get back to you. And about 10 minutes later, he texted back and said, "I just read the articles. This is outrageous."
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "It is. I thought you'd be interested, though, in the story. There's quite a bit of a pushback here." He said, "Well, I hope so." And he said, "Do you want to come on the show and talk about it? Maybe we can squeeze you in between the Trump stuff, And I said, "Well, check it out, and, make a decision on what you think and get back to me. Maybe I'm not the best one to speak on the subject because I'm more emotional than I am. I'm not in Youngstown, so I don't feel that I might be the best person to you would be better than I for that example. But, I'm a face that's not,
yes.
but
yes.
I understand that, but so that's what I told Lawrence. I said, you guys, you do a good job yourself if you want to look into it, and you can interview lots of people and do a little piece on it. So we'll see. We'll see what they do.
So several times you've alluded to, and I have raised the question, who's the kingmaker here?
Yeah.
and in the parlance of the Mahoning Valley, who's the godfather?
Right.
So
who's the boss?
Who's the boss? And
there's always a boss.
Of course there is, especially in a situation like this. So if Johnson ultimately ends up being president of YSU, what do you see your relationship with the university playing out?
Going
How
forward?
Do you see that playing?
None. Absolutely nothing. I want my name taken off anything that they would have my name on. I want them to take my doctorate, which is right there on the wall, which I was quite proud of. I want that. I want to give that back to them. I'm ashamed of them. I just feel, betrayed, and it's shameful. It doesn't represent me or many, many, many people at the university, this choice. Quite the opposite. Can you imagine being a gay member of the university?
Exactly.
Possibly married, possibly wanting to get married, and this is the president of the university?
Right.
No, that's an insult. You can't have a president like that. But maybe in Youngstown, I don't know. Like I said, I thought that the mob was through, but obviously not.
And indeed, not only gays, and members of the LGBTQ community.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
But you have Muslim students on campus.
Of course.
And his embrace of Donald Trump's ban
Muslim
on Muslims.
ban, yeah.
You have his position on immigration, where, it's interesting. The largest group of the largest growth among students at YSU is international students.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are coming from India, a lot of them are coming from Nepal and from Pakistan and all of that. I mean, imagine those students who, I came to America as a foreign student. There's a cultural issue that you have to deal with. There's, you're away from home, and imagine being on a campus where the president has in the past expressed opinions that, make you worry.
Well, if it didn't, there'd be something wrong with you. So the question then would be, would you choose to come to such a university? I wouldn't. I'd go anywhere else. I would never go here. Never. Why? Why would you go there? The answer is you wouldn't go there.
Exactly.
Are they saying to us that doesn't bother them? And if they're saying that, what does that mean? I mean, I heard Peterson say I only heard the one interview, but he said that he had, I don't want to quote him because I'm just paraphrasing. He knew people in the LQ, what is it?
LGBTQ, right.
Yeah, LGBTQ community who voted and were in approval of this choice. And I was watching it by myself and I had to start laughing. I said, what, does he want me to believe that? And were they hurt in an accident? Did they have brain damage? Or, there's obviously a reason. If that ever happened in life, I would like to say, look, to Mr. Peterson, he's an African-American, right?
Yes.
If you said, look, we're reincarnating George Wallace, and he's going to be the president of Youngstown State University. Now, trust me, it's for your good. What do you think his response would be? Probably not, right? Probably not. You know, but he wants you to believe what that he just said about that community. It's remarkable.
Right. The problem is the trustees claim they did all kinds of things. They reached out to the communities. They reached out to the university community. They reached out. But, you know, the key is there were, in the end, in the final screening, there were, I guess, about 20 people from campus who were involved. But they were required to sign non-disclosure agreements so they wouldn't talk about, you know, the finalists. They wouldn't talk about the candidates. I mean, this is a public institution with paid for by taxpayer dollars.
The more they talk about the process that they used to get this decision, to make this decision, the more they tell us about it, how complicated it was,
right?
The more they put into it,
yes.
the more ridiculous it is.
Right.
They should have said, you know what would be better for them if they said, you know, we really didn't even think about it. Somebody said his name. I like the way he looked.
Right.
He sang a song. I heard him do a little ditty, a commercial. It was great. We thought he'll make a good president. We put him in. I'm sorry. Am I wrong? Because that makes more sense than if you say, we vetted this guy to the gills. We vetted this guy. We put him through every possible microscope that we could employ, and he came out the best man.
Right.
Nobody believes that.
No. It defies everything you know about processes, how things work, how appointments are made, you know, how interviews are conducted. But here's the kicker for me. The trustees are not going to backtrack. First of all, they've signed a contract with this guy he's going to make $410,000 a year plus. He's going to have a huge benefit package, you know, free housing, car allowance, you know, all kinds of perks.
Country club membership.
All kinds of perks, right. So they're not going to backtrack, and they don't have to because they were appointed by, you know, either Governor Kasich or Governor DeWine.
Right.
And they've got 9-year terms, and they're secure in those terms. So the only person who could, if he had any shame, who could change this whole thing would be Johnson himself. So let me ask you this, as an actor who's read many scripts and maybe even written some scripts. If you had the opportunity to sit across from Bill Johnson, and he says to you, I don't understand, you know, why you oppose me, and you had the opportunity to tell him or to try and persuade him that this is the wrong job for him, what would you say?
Well, that's a good question. I would think that I would say something to the effect of, you know, Bill, some things can't be changed. I've learned that through quite a long life. Some things can't be changed. You can't be changed. And you're not going to change. And you know you're not going to change. So you're not the right man for the job. Right? Are you gonna say that the election was rigged until the day you die? You're not going to be in approval of gays till the day you die. And on and on and on. All his beliefs are strong beliefs. I don't agree with those beliefs. So unless we can communicate with one another and he can understand that who he's representing is a whole world of different people and cultures.
Right.
and that the job requires more than just your little small town farming community, whatever that is where you come from. Those beliefs don't work here, so you're wrong for the job. Now he's going to say no, that he can do it, the old-fashioned way, or whatever his beliefs are, But what else could you say to a guy like that? He's not going to listen. He's not going to. It's not going to. He's not going to change his mind. The same as the board.
Right.
Same as Peterson. He's not changing his mind. He's sure. He said it. It wasn't the popular decision, but it was the right decision.
Right.
And he said it quite convincingly. It was the right conviction. According to who?
Right.
Who are you trying to please? That's what I'd like to know. Not himself, for sure. There's someone or some others he's trying to be the pat on the head that he gets from that.
Well, we've come to the end of the segment, and
Yep.
I'm sure that what the comments that you have made will ignite a lot of discussion in our community, because while prominent people in the community have reached out to me expressing their dismay, they're reluctant to come on a program such as this, to talk about their true feelings. And for that, I truly appreciate you doing this.
Bertram, it's just the way I was raised and brought up. Most people don't like to fight. I don't like to fight, but I was brought up fighting if I had to. And I feel that this is a time to fight. It's not comfortable to fight. It's not comfortable to say things about people you've liked and that you admired in other areas. But it's necessary to me. I'm going to tell you what I think.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Great. Thank you again. It was a pleasure. And as I said, I've told somebody, you made my Thanksgiving by the conversation we had about the old days. That was great.
I had at least as much fun as you.
I did, and you're a great storyteller, and we'll chat about that because I got an idea. But it was great. I hope we get the chance to talk again, and appreciate you spending the time with us. Thank you.
Now I got to call my wife back and see what she wants.
Sorry about that. Tell her I said hello.
All right. Best of luck.
Bye-bye. You too. Thank you, Cryshanna, for joining me to discuss what I believe is an inexplicable decision by the Board of Trustees to appoint Congressman Bill Johnson as the next president of YSU. Let me start with this yes or no question. Does the YSU OEA believe that Congressman Johnson is qualified to be president of a 4-year institution of higher learning?
No.
Okay.
And the reason is because we can only go based off of the information that we've received. And so based off of the information that we've received and based off of the responses from the community, it does not seem that this individual would be qualified. I mean, he hasn't even taken office yet, and we are trying to do damage control in terms of the amount of funding and backlash from the community. And one of the things that we were looking for in a president is somebody that could bring the community together, not somebody that was going to tear the community apart.
Okay, and the process has been one of the major points of contention as to how the trustees went about, how the search was conducted, the secrecy surrounding it, the non-disclosure agreements that individuals on campus who were included in the screening were required to sign. And so in his statement, the president of the YSU OEA, Dr. Mark Vopat, placed his emphasis on the process, the secret process, the trustees adopted in deciding who would succeed Jim Tressel. Who would succeed the president. What if the trustees decided to redo the selection with transparency and openness, and then conclude that Johnson is still the best person for the job? Would that be acceptable to the faculty union?
I think if that were the case, and this is still the top candidate, we would be more accepting. What I know, and what a lot of people are saying, is when you do things in secrets, when you do secrecy, the looks, the optics is that there is an ulterior motive. When you don't give people the opportunity to ask questions. I'm not sure what the presidency will look like. I'm not here to attack Congressman Johnson. I'm not sure of his qualifications. And that is kind of why we are upset, because we were never given the opportunity to ask the person that is to lead us into the future simple questions about his vision, about his mission, about his goals, and about his intention for Youngstown State University. We are the stakeholders. We are the ones who deal day to day with the students. We are the ones that have to implement the process. We have to go into the classroom. We have to implement the curriculum. We have to help with the enrollment. And we would like to know what the vision is, what the mission is, what this individual is going to bring, so that we can work together as a team. When you go behind people's back, you are basically saying, we don't care what you think. Your opinion does not matter to us. When students and alumni send you a letter with over 2,000 signatures and say, hey, we don't like this process, and you pretty much tell them, we don't care what you think. We don't care how you feel. We, as the appointed body, the Board of Trustees, who have other jobs that we go back to on a day-to-day basis, do not care how you feel about this, what you do, and we are not going to even give you the opportunity to ask questions. We are not going to make this individual give a presentation. We are not going to have him come to campus with his vision. That just seems, it does not pass the smell test. We don't understand why we can't ask the questions, why we are not involved with a process that has such a big outcome on our day-to-day lives.
So, as you've said, the trustees' attitude seems to be, we don't care. Where is this arrogance coming from? Because as long as I have covered YSU as a journalist over the 40 years I've been in Youngstown, trustees were always conscious of the community, because they lived in the community. They went out there, they went out to dinners, they met people. Whatever actions they took, they heard from the community. But this board just doesn't seem to care, does it?
It just doesn't seem, and that is one of our concerns, because this is just one decision. The Board of Trustees are going to be making more decisions, not just this. And if the attitude is, we're going to do something that could be detrimental, and we don't care, right? And then as faculty, we're supposed to just suck it up, like we don't have a voice, like we don't matter. Like what we're trying to do, we made great strides with President Lafferty as the interim president in terms of shared governance,
right,
in terms of working with students, in terms of cohesion, in terms of working with programs and curriculum. we had been taking steps in the right direction. And this just seems like it might undermine everything that we have been trying to do in the wake of waiting on a president to be appointed permanently. And so for us, it just seems like a slap in the face, because we work really, really hard and we put a lot of time and energy into the university and into our students. And for me, this is really reflecting poorly on our area and for our students. We have made national headlines.
Yes.
I have gotten calls from people I haven't talked to in 8 or 9 years that I met at a conference. Like, and this is why they're calling us. Like, this is what we're doing. And they are doubling down. They are doubling down. Like, no, this is the leader. And I'm like, this person hasn't led yet. Like, what are we talking about? We are now in a situation where major donors are pulling out, where major big names are, we don't want to be associated with the university that I have to come to, that I work at, that is on my resume. This is problematic all around because of the decision that they made, independent of anybody else.
How long have you been at YSU?
16 years.
16 years. When Jim Tressel was named president, it came after some very prominent, very wealthy donors to YSU, business leaders, community leaders, all sent a letter to the trustees urging that Tressel be made president. I, in my column, strongly objected, because my contention was, if you are a true legitimate institution of higher learning, you need as your leader somebody who has dedicated his or her life to academia and therefore has either a PhD or some kind of comparative terminal degree where you can show actual scholarship. And I said, Tressel doesn't have that. But the trustees hired him, despite the fact that he was not an academic, and now say that he did a wonderful job of raising money for YSU. It's, YSU has had some of the biggest fundraisers they've ever had. So this current Board of Trustees, in justifying their appointment of Johnson, points to that and says, hey, by the way, you had a non-academic in Jim Tressel as president, so what's the big deal? So that's my question. What's the big deal?
So I agree with you. When Tressel was hired, I actually didn't think that he was going to apply. I was kind of shocked, like, oh, we're not going an academic route. I feel like as an institution of higher education that wants to be respected in the area. And we took backlash from that as well. We were on ESPN. We hired Jim Tressel to be our president, and he did raise a lot of money. Yeah. But I would argue that if the successor loses the money that the predecessor raised for the university, and the other thing that's a little bit different is that Jim Tressel did have some experience in education, in higher education. He worked at several universities. In higher levels. He was at the University of Akron before. He was at Youngstown State as the football coach, but he still worked within the community. Sure. And they basically told us, well, we are bringing him in. This is what I was told. We are bringing him in, not as president for publications, but to raise money. And that is what they brought him in, and that is what he did. They did not tell us what they brought Congressman Bill Johnson in to do. Is he a fundraiser? Is that why they're bringing him in? Does he have big donations that we are unaware of? Nobody has told us the plan. With President Tressel, when he was brought in, we were told what the plan was and what he could bring. And we've seen him bring that in. And he was bringing that in before he was president. And so what I'm saying is the big deal is this is not a comparison. You cannot compare somebody who has not had any academic experience with higher education to somebody who had a little bit. Right. And then in terms of fundraising, I haven't even seen the fundraising that the congressman could do. So if that's the case, then they still didn't need to be secretive. They could have just said, we're bringing him in to raise money. They have yet, what we've heard on the press conferences is that we're bringing him in for his leadership style.
Right.
That's all I've heard. We're bringing him in for leadership. And I'm like, leadership? Everybody's running away. Don't leaders bring people together? Yeah. Leaders don't usually make people take YSU off their LinkedIn page. Not the leaders I've seen.
Right. There is, I mean, what he cannot deny is that he is one of the strongest supporters of Donald Trump in Congress, and has bought into the whole Trump lie about the 2020 re-election. He also has embraced some of Trump's radical far-right positions on LGBTQ rights, on immigration, on a whole slew of these, and then he has also, if you read some of his comments about higher education, he's touting this whole Republican line, is that there are too many liberals running our colleges and universities, and we need more conservatives. And he actually went on to say that the reason there's enrollment decline is because there's parents don't want their children to be indoctrinated on campuses, and therefore they're pulling them out of not letting them go to university or college. Johnson, after all of this, says, oh, when I become president, I'm going to leave my politics at the doorstep. And I'm going to come in as a president who is politically neutral, I guess. That's what he's trying to convey. Do you buy that?
So my program that I teach is the political science program.
Yeah.
And my study is public administration. And we talk about the politics administration dichotomy, where we want to keep our politics and our administration separate. But we talked about how problematic that is, because your politics are kind of who you are.
Yes.
And when you bring somebody in, and once again, because of the way this search was conducted, it's hard for me to leave your politics or look at you and separate the politician from the person, because all I know is the politician. We never got an example of the type of person. And so I tend to think that that is rhetoric, and that is something that a politician would say. Like, oh, I did all these things. Well, no, that was for me to get elected. I won't do or bring any of that into a public university that has state funding. A public university that right now in the state of Ohio, SB 83 is a bill that the Republicans have brought that looks at collective bargaining, that looks at DEI, that looks at the way that we teach those things that you were talking about. And if it is to be passed, then it will be up to the universities, the presidents, on how the university will interpret the laws. And so you can't not be political when you are running a state institution with taxpayer money. Like, everything kind of comes together. And so those views and the way that you're saying that, no, one, they're separate, but are they separate, right? Can you really separate? If you don't believe in data or facts as a politician, will you then believe the data and the facts as the university president? We know why enrollment has dropped, because the population has dropped.
Right.
We also know that a lot of people aren't going to colleges because of the price we're paying our administrators. The price of college has risen, has increased, and people can't afford to pay that. We also know that other job fields are opening up, whether it's technology or with the social media crave, like the TikTokers. So there are a lot of reasons, supported by data, why enrollment has dropped. And if we disregard that, then we really cannot fix that problem.
Yeah. So it almost seems to me that it's a done deal. The trustees are unapologetic. In fact, they're doubling down on their arguments as to why they made the right decision. Johnson is sounding very much like, the job was made for him, and therefore, regardless of all the regardless of the naysayers, when he comes to campus and he takes over the presidency, it'll be a kumbaya moment for everybody because he's going to bring everybody together and all of that. What steps does the YSU OEA plan on taking to make sure that this issue doesn't just simply dissipate in the coming weeks, and then in March when Johnson is appointed, there'll be just an acceptance on campus by the university community?
I think that one of the things that we've been talking about is the strategy in terms of just getting the information out there, kind of what we're doing. And then if this is, if this is what the Board of Trustees decide to do, we are contractually obligated to Youngstown State as faculty members to provide education for our students and to do our research and to do those things in that area. And we are committed to doing that. And we are committed to working and serving the university. But there is going to be backlash and there is going to be fallout from this that is going to be out of our control. It's going to be out of our hands. If we had an issue with enrollment before, we are going to have an issue with enrollment after. And once again, this comparison between President Tressel and Johnson, students actually did come to YSU because they wanted to see President Tressel. Right. They liked him.
Right.
Students are dropping out, and parents are, I have gotten emails from students who are like, my parents want me to transfer out because of all of this. Because even if you're neutral, you don't usually want your kids involved in what looks to be like a scandal and what looks to be like something that is not passing the smell test. So we are going to do the best that we can as the faculty, but it is going to be up to the administration. They are going to have their hands full because they are going to have to figure out how to work with what we have so that we can still try to serve a community that is running away. How do we get back into the graces? And how do we try to figure out how to move forward if this is what is going to continue, or if this is going to be the final say?
So the trustees are scheduled to meet next week. It's a public meeting. Somebody emphasized that, which is ironic. What is the OEA, the YSU OEA, going to do on that day? What are your plans, or what are you planning to do to continue this conversation and to again continue voicing your disapproval of what the trustees have done?
I think we just have to go to the meeting once again, continue to get the letters, continue to get what our community involved. I mean, I will be honest, I was really impressed with the outpouring and the support from the community that are just like, this was not well done. This was a bad process. And sometimes you just have to keep, fighting and fighting and fighting the fight until you can get the things done that need to be done. And whether it's, looking at what the Board of Trustees wants to go in the future, but I think at some point, something's going to have to give. And so if this is the way or the wave of what YSU is going, if this is the direction that the university wants to take, if this is the direction that the Board of Trustees is going to take, then they have to be prepared to have repercussions. They have to be prepared that for every action, there may be a reaction and that the community is going to react. So we know that people are resigning off of the YSU Foundation. Right. We know that people are pulling funding. There's a call on Facebook for people to rescind their donations, right, to take YSU off of their LinkedIn profiles and to not associate. And so that is something that we're really going to have to hammer in, because we're not the only university in this area. We are not the only option for students in this area. We have to compete with other universities. And so this is what we're doing. We are digging ourselves a really big hole, and I don't know if we're going to be able to get out of it.
Right.
And it really makes me wonder too, with the incoming president, if he is even aware of some of the issues that the university has been facing over time. did they even let him know? Like, he's taking this position. It's like, do you know about the low enrollment? Are you aware of the sunset of programs? Do you know about the retrenchment of faculty?
And that's a good point you bring up, because when Dr. Lafferty was hired to be interim president, when the board put out a statement and emphasized her familiarity with the strategic plan and the fact that she would know how to implement it. When they put out a statement announcing Johnson's appointment, there was no mention of these kinds of issues that are really currently being discussed on campus. They just said, oh, he'll be a good leader, and you know, he knows.
Good leader.
Yeah, that's all.
He gonna lead us to the promised land. Y'all just wait.
Yeah, this is. Well, listen, I appreciate the time. I'm sorry we kept you waiting. As I said, we are going to continue this. We are going to continue this using this podcast as a platform to oppose not only what the trustees have done, but to point out why Johnson is not qualified to be president of an institution of higher learning. So I hope we can have you on again as the weeks pass, and it was nice meeting you. Thank you, Cryshanna.
Thank you very much for the invitation. It was very nice meeting you as well.
Okay. My special thanks to Hollywood great Ed O'Neill, the Mahoning Valley's favorite son, for his honest and heartfelt appraisal of the trustees' actions. I also greatly appreciate the perspective from Dr. Cryshanna Jackson Leftwich, spokeswoman for the faculty union at YSU. Let there be no doubt, a Johnson presidency will be disastrous for the university, given his record as a right-wing extremist who has denigrated higher education. The trustees are scheduled to meet on December 7. We're planning to host a live video podcast during which we will be taking calls from viewers. This will be an opportunity for members of the YSU community and the Valley community at large to voice their opinions. We'll be publicizing the date and time of the podcast and also the telephone number for viewers to call in. Thanks again to Andy Kunkel, the producer, technical director, and videographer of this podcast that's streamed on my YouTube channel, the Scribbler Facebook page, and other digital platforms. I'm Bertram de Souza, wishing you a pleasant day.